In this tutorial, I'm going to cover how to replace the Spectra trim line on our new control bar. The first step is deciding when to replace your trim loop. Here are a couple examples from different stages in the life of a trim line. The first stage is pretty much just off the lot. You can see the Spectra is still shiny and waxy, and this will be good for quite some time. The next example is after a significant amount of use. You can see some fraying in the outer strands, and if you run your finger over it, you'll feel abrasions and roughness in the Spectra. This is probably a good time to replace your trim loop. It's still got some life left in it, but fixing it now will avoid some problems down the road. The next example shows significant wear. The outer Spectra is completely worn and broken, and the inner core is all that's left. The next example takes it one step farther. It's barely hanging together by a thread. You're probably not going to get a full session out of this one. And finally, this is what happens when it breaks. To replace the trim loop, you're going to want to assemble the following items: a flathead screwdriver, a pair of scissors, and tape. You can use duct tape, painter's tape, or electrical tape. Whatever you got will probably work. The first step in replacing a trim line is to start by uncovering the knot at the bottom of the power strap. Begin by untying the knot. The knot may be difficult to loosen, so you can also use a pair of scissors to cut both sides of the Spectra line. If you use scissors, then the old knot can be used as an example at the end when you have to retie the knot on the new trim line. Next, you will want to slide off the speed control stopper, put it in a safe place, and pull the trim line through the bar. Grab a flathead screwdriver and pry off the plastic cap on the top of the quick release. This will give you better access to the inside of the quick release and make it easier to get the new Spectra line in place. Grab the replacement Spectra line. Notice that the ones that you can get from the Caution online store come with a 2.5-inch taped leader, which is sewn onto each end of the Spectra line. This makes putting the bar back together much easier. Just to give you an idea of what the inside of the quick release looks like, I pulled apart a quick release to show the stainless hoop that is seated inside the horn of the quick release. The Spectra trim line simply loops through the hoop and then heads back up to the power strap. Okay, so the next step is to grab your tape. Here I'm using electrical tape, and start by cutting something like a 7-inch strip. Lay it sticky side up. Take one end of the old trim loop and lay it over the tape, overlapping about 1.5 inches. Roll the tape around the Spectra so it has a good connection. Next, take the end of the new Spectra trim line and fix it to the other end of the tape. Then, grab the old Spectra and begin pulling it through the stainless hoop on the inside of the quick release. Pull it through, being careful not to separate the tape from either end of the Spectra lines. When you get to the point where you're trying to pull the new Spectra trim line around the stainless hoop, it often helps to use a flathead screwdriver. Push the new Spectra tip down farther past the end of the stainless hoop, and this will help the bulky Spectra tip get around the hoop and prevent the tape from disconnecting. Once the Spectra has been pulled through, remove the tape and pull the Spectra through until both ends are even. You will want to then thread the horn stopper on first, then thread the Spectra through the insert on the bar, and finally, thread the Spectra through the speed control stopper, making sure to leave the fatter end towards the bar. Just as a note, the taped leader makes feeding through the stopper much easier. Next, you will feed the two Spectra ends through the ring at the bottom of the power strap, and pull them around and tie the ends together so that you have essentially created a lark's head around the metal ring. To secure the two ends together, you will use two overhand knots tied onto each other. And then cinch the two knots together. Keep in mind that getting that right may take a couple attempts, and it helps to have the original knot as an example. You will cut off the tape leaders and then pull down the power strap's neoprene jacket to hide the knot, and then you're going to be ready to go. Sometimes you may not have the old Spectra line threaded through the quick release, or you might not have tape with you. In either scenario, you can use your kite lines. Start by freeing up about 5 feet of kite line, and arbitrarily pick a point on your kite line and make a U. Pinch it together and then fold it over so it makes a hook. A ½ inch or slightly less seems to be the right length to make this work, so you will then feed that hook into the quick release, get it around the metal hoop, and then use a screwdriver to help pull the kite line hook back out. You can then tie the kite line to the new Spectra trim line with the lark's head, either around a taped leader or around the Spectra itself in order to feed it back through the quick release. You will want to use the screwdriver to help the transition around the stainless hoop. Alright, so that's how you replace the Spectra trim line. You can purchase the new Spectra trim line with the taped leaders at our store at www.cautionsantacruz.com.